a lot of organisations tend to like to grow their own. So once you get into the workforce, your opportunities may be larger in terms of accessing different types of apprenticeships. And what I would really suggest is have a look at any opportunities you can to do to get in and get some work experience, or to do some part-time work, perhaps as you get to that age. Have a look at what is available. It sets you in a really good stead when it comes to applying for those apprenticeship roles later on. And through the NHS Jobs website, you can sign up for alerts from local employers, and that will allow you to get email notifications when certain roles become available. So I've talked a lot about pathways. This is just an example of some of the pathways you might access. If you want to go into sort of paramedicine, there's an opportunity to go through a pathway to become a paramedic. I've already mentioned the idea of being a registered nurse degree apprentice. This potentially illustrates the pathway you might take. You might go in as a healthcare support worker and go through all of those apprenticeships. And again, there are non-clinical opportunities in areas such as finance and IT. And we've got a whole range of those pathways that you can view on our website, which is there at the bottom. So by all means, have a look at that. It gives you an idea of what your long-term career development opportunities might be. So how do you apply? I mentioned NHS Jobs. This is the main platform that NHS trusts, so that would be hospital trusts, community trusts and mental health trusts, use across the country to advertise their opportunities. You can search by keyword. So if you are looking for an apprenticeship, you can just type in apprentice and search. You can filter by location, by salary, by sort of type of role in terms of clinical versus non-clinical role. So it's a really sophisticated way of doing some job search. And as I've already said, you can then save that as an alert, and they will send you notifications when new roles appear that sort of meet your search criteria. And you can also find apprenticeships on the gov.uk website. It's also worth considering if you are interested in working perhaps in our primary care employers, so that would be sort of GP practices, or in social care. It's also worth looking at local job boards to where you live, or perhaps speaking to employers directly. You tend to find that those organisations don't often advertise on NHS Jobs. So sometimes it's worth just, sending an email or giving them a call to see what they might have available. And then the other tip I would give you is it's worth also reaching out to your local apprenticeship training providers, because they may well be advertising on behalf of other employers. So it's always worth sort of reaching out in sort of a variety of ways to give yourself the best chance. The other interesting thing on NHS Jobs is it gives you some really good information relating to your applications and interviews. So if you haven't done an application before, or you're finding that you are doing applications but perhaps are struggling to get an interview, there are some really, really good hints and tips at the bottom of the homepage of the NHS Jobs website, which just gives you an idea of the sort of best way of getting an interview. And some useful things to know: don't just apply for one apprenticeship and leave it at that. Apply for as many as you are interested in, even if it's with the same employer within the NHS. You will find that different managers are reviewing those applications at different times, and you might find that, depending on the apprenticeship role and the team that you might be joining, you might have relevant knowledge, skills and values that fit one team but perhaps not the other. So don't just stick to one at a time. Apply for as many as interest you. You can only do an apprenticeship where you are going to be gaining significant new learning. So what that means, if you go off to college and do a health and social care diploma, you might find that you then can't do health and social care apprenticeship at the same level. So you have to be looking at more at higher level apprenticeships. But if you have a degree in biology, you could potentially do a degree apprenticeship in dietetics or something. So it's not necessarily the level that prohibits you from doing an apprenticeship. It just has to be new learning. Also, if you find that your maths and English grades at GCSE aren't quite what you would like, there is an opportunity to gain maths and English qualifications alongside your apprenticeship to get them equivalent to a GCSE 4 to 9. And I'd highly recommend, if you are interested in particular programs, get in touch with the line manager and the training provider to get a bit of an idea of what specifics they're looking for. When you look on NHS Jobs, you will also often have a contact that you can get in touch with for the job role. You can just ask them questions that might help you when you're writing your application. So that's a good tip. I'm coming towards the end. I'm sure you'll be glad to hear. Just a little bit on values-based recruitment that I thought would be useful to share. So a lot of recruitment of apprentices within NHS is based on the values you have and the motivation that you've got and the attitude, as opposed to necessarily focusing on your experience. That's because through an apprenticeship program, we can train you to give you the skills and the knowledge you need to do the job. But actually, developing values is something that is far more difficult. So what the NHS are looking for is often individuals that share the values that the NHS is built upon. For example, the NHS Constitution is something that is the principle of most NHS organisations' values. So it's really useful when you're going into an application process or an interview process to think about, how your values relate to the values of the employing organisation. So it's worth having a look at the specific values that organisation publish, but also really consider some of these values here while you're doing that application.